10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
Liftoff, and the clock is liftoff.
The clock is operating. We're underway.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And we work our way through the dark caverns right into Kerbalcast, episode 31, The Misty Mountain Hop.
I wasn't talking to you.
I am your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin, and our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
Coming up in today's program,
Our progress in the game.
we'll have another episode of Space Plane Flight School with Wanderfound,
Your letters in the mission briefing.
and we introduce a new feature this week, A Kerbal Life. And welcome back.
I am back from EVA.
You are back from EVA. We did a clip show last week.
Yeah. Like
We did a best of.
I listened to it. I was like, oh, this is a nice trip down a lot of awful memories lane.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially Beginner's Minute.
Yeah.
Get away from me.
Yeah. Get away from me.
No. You're still traumatized.
Yeah.
by
No,
that. Yeah.
Goodbye, beginners.
Well,
Minute.
I was
good.
very coy about it. I said that you were on EVA.
Yeah.
But you were gone all week. You were traveling.
Yeah. My new job has travel. So
Yeah.
around 4 or 5 days at a time, I'll be out of town. And, one, we can't record, and two, I don't have any way of using internet or anything. So
I was going to say, it's not the fun travel. You have no internet.
Yeah.
You have no video games.
yeah.
How can you stand it?
I thought I took a good book with me, but it ended up not being a good book. So I was at my one saving grace is in the hotel room. Prometheus was on TV. So
Oh, okay.
2 nights
Okay.
in a row. So that 2 of the 4 nights I was gone, I had something.
See, I thought you were going to say pay-per-view porn. So did you walk up and down the halls of the hotel explaining Prometheus to everybody?
Yeah. Like I was running around like yelling what channel it was.
Yeah.
Like, turn to it. It's on now.
You were standing in the hallway and you'd listen, and when you'd hear, "This sucks," you'd
Yeah.
go, "Bam, bam, bam, bam." No, let me explain.
No, actually, it's about
So you have, did you have a chance to do any kerbeling?
I got a little bit in.
Okay.
Yeah, because starting the new job and everything, it ate up a lot of time because
Mm-hmm.
I also had to even before the job started, I had to do stuff to get ready for the job.
Right.
So it was a hectic week, but
Well, I have to toss out a number for you. Are
okay.
you ready? 1,023.
Wow.
That is the total number of hours I now have in the game. Last week, when I was putting together the best of the clip show, I went back and I listened to our very first episode. And I said in that first episode, I said, yeah, I'm at about 500. And then, now I look at it and go, oh, my God.
Yeah. I mean, we've skipped 1 week, so
Yeah.
that's around 32 weeks, and in 32 weeks, you packed on double the time.
Yeah. Yeah, usually
Wow.
when I pack on 500 or something, it's pounds. But no, this time I don't know if this is a new feature on Steam or it's always been there and I just discovered it. But if you click on the store page for a game, and it's a game that you already own, it'll give you not only your total time in the game, but it also tells you your total time in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've seen
have you
that
seen
on a
that?
couple. Yeah.
Okay, I typically average, are you ready? In a 2-week span, I average 50 to 60 hours.
Wow, that's like another job.
I know.
It's
Isn't
like
that
a
amazing?
part-time job.
Yeah, I mean, no wonder I'm excelling. Or I'm over 1,000 hours in the game.
Yeah.
But again, I've said this before, but I want to say it again. Listening to that first episode and listening to us talk, I was a little surprised at how
Many people still listen to us.
well, I was going to say how low my skill level was.
Oh.
I mean, you had just started the game, so you didn't know anything. And, I was...
So some things don't change.
Yeah. But, I was talking, I had 500 hours in the game, and I was talking, well, I know this and blah, blah, blah. But it's amazing how much I've learned just in the last 6+ months.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because the listeners. Every time I've had a question, I've tossed it out to the listeners, and the answer has come back in spades.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, And that's my way of saying thank you, by the way. Let's continue. Let's go on into our progress. Obviously, you didn't have internet. You were traveling. You didn't get a whole lot of video game time in.
Yeah.
But you kerbled a little bit, right?
I kerbled a little bit.
Okay.
And you know
Was
how
it a rolly or a spinny?
you know how I said I needed to earn some money because I was kind of low on money.
Right.
Well, whenever I got back to my game, I forgot about that, and I forgot that was the next thing I needed to do was do some contracts. Well, I built a rocket that I was going to try to do a flyby of Minmus, and get some science and get some. I'm currently doing a money strategy, so it'd get me a decent chunk of money too.
Right.
So I built a ship and I launched it, and I'm trying to rendezvous with the space station that I set up so I could refuel and then make my trip. And
you're going to use some of your mad rendezvous skills.
Well, two things happened that aren't good. First thing is I only have around 10,000 left in funds after I built that thing. So I'm going to have to build some real simple, weird stuff and hope that I can get some contract off of it.
Right.
And then, unless I just decide to revert the whole thing, but I want to try to see if I could just do it. And then the other thing is, it's been so long since that successful rendezvous. I'm trying to have to really put together how I did it.
Yeah.
So I'm having to retrace my steps and find out how to rendezvous again. And I'm really close to where I left off, like last time I rendezvoused.
Have you noticed that that's how progress works? It's like you accomplish it once, and then you struggle to accomplish it the second time.
Yeah, to repeat the success you had.
Yeah.
Yeah, my ship, it's funny, after I built it and I have it going, it looks a lot like a Y-Wing from Star Wars.
From Star Wars.
Yeah. I have two little nuke engines that are piloting it. And I realized whenever I was putting RCS around the central body, I only did 2 symmetry. I didn't do 4.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
I mean, it'll still be I could still handle it.
Sure.
But it's not going to be as easy as especially when it comes to docking.
Yeah. I was going to say you don't have quite the effectiveness there. I would think.
Yeah. So part of me wants to just revert it just to add the RCS on and still try to put all my eggs in one basket and go for it. But I've also thought about reverting and doing some contracts for a while to gain some money. So for other stuff.
Well, you may have an excuse to revert here pretty quick. As we're recording this, they have yet to release 0.90.
Yeah, I heard about that.
There's been rumors that it's pending. So, and I mean, by the time we release this, it may be out for all I know.
Yeah.
But when it comes out, you and I have always kind of reset.
Yeah, so I'm maybe doing a big revert. So
yeah. Well, ironically, I just got done with my science tree. I just finished it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now all the science I'm collecting is just accumulating. It's like now I'm going.
I wish you could bank it for whenever you revert.
Now what do I do with it?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, it's you wish you could bank something like that. So when you revert, like whenever you have to redo your whole save profile, you could be like, hey, here's all the science from the last Kerbal Space program.
Right.
Just go ahead and use that.
I could. It would be my Kerbal Trust Fund.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I left off. It wasn't super eventful. I'm going to try to maybe build a small ship, like with that 10,000 I have, like the cheapest thing I can possibly build, and complete some minor contracts and hope I make more money than I spend, and then trying to get that little ship to rendezvous, refuel, and fly by Minmus, and just do a flyby. I'm not going to land. I don't have the stuff to land. Right. I'm just going to fly by.
Wait a minute. You don't have the right stuff to land?
I'm just.
You're just going to let that one go, aren't you?
I'm going to blow the hatch on that one.
Squirming hatch blower. Well, the last time we did an episode, I was talking about, I'm having adventures in the Joule system right now.
Yeah. I mean, since we had 2 weeks since we've recorded, I mean, you're like so far removed from where we left off.
Yeah. Yes and no. I think I didn't think about this until last time, but the thing about Joule, since Joule is so far out, Joule missions, I'm amazed at the amount of preparation that goes into them. Because it's like you have to get all the pieces of the ship that you need in orbit, and you have to refuel, and then you have to get the crew up there and all. And I mean, so you spend quite a lot of time just getting ready to leave Kerbin orbit. And that's not before that's not even, planets are in alignment and all that other stuff. I mean, you spend a lot of time just building what you need in orbit. And it almost, you were joking about, this is like another job. After about the third or fourth rendezvous to refuel and whatever I needed for the trip, I was thinking to myself, and this is fun. How? Because, it's like I'd rendezvous and I'd refuel as much as I could. And then I'd rendezvous again and refuel some more. And, and I'd finally get the thing put together. And then after, several hours of this, then it would be, okay, now I can do my planetary transfer.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we last spoke, I had been to Lathe, which is the planet that is closest in to Joule, and I have been to the planet that was further. I'm doing it again. I'm saying planets.
Yeah.
Moons. I've been to the closest in moon, which is
careful.
Lathe, and I've been to the furthest out moon, which is Pole.
Mm-hmm.
And what I said was, from that point on, I'm going to work my way out.
Yeah.
And when we spoke last, I was positioning myself, if I remember correctly, for Vol, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
And Vol is the one that is supposed to be like Europa. It's an ice planet.
Yeah.
And I have since, I've landed on Vol, and I have moved on to Tylo. I will say, so far as the Joule system goes, Vol has been my favorite moon. It is, first of all, it's visually, it's very appealing. Secondly, I don't know if this was just luck, but getting into orbit around Vol was fairly, I won't say easy, but it wasn't difficult. Landing was not a problem. It has an extremely small sphere of influence. So I was actually able to, my periapsis, I think, actually got as low as like 10 kilometers.
Wow.
Which it's an equatorial orbit that I'm doing. And there's a mountain range right along my orbital path. And it's got this one really tall peak. And at one point, I actually thought, I'm not sure I'm going to clear this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did, but it was like I really grazing the top of those mountains.
Yeah.
But I landed on Vol. Did my EVAs and my science, and they've got ice boulders and things everywhere, and it was just, I really liked Vol. For me, for some reason, it was just visually appealing. And it was a lot of fun, which I should have known was setting me up for Tylo.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Tylo is, I have spent, I can't tell you the amount of time I've spent trying to get to Tylo.
Yeah.
It takes a lot just to get into orbit, number one. Number two, landing on it, I have yet to successfully land on Tylo. I tried it with a high apoapsis and a low periapsis. I tried it with a low apoapsis and a low periapsis.
Mm-hmm.
I actually at one point had a periapsis that was as low as, I think it was 2 kilometers. And that time, yes, I slammed right into the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
Which was, I was just bopping along thinking, yep,
like,
2
hey.
kilometers, this is great. Whoops. But I finally realized that I did not have enough fuel to successfully land and then get back off.
Mm-hmm.
So what I ended up doing was I collected all my science in orbit.
Yeah.
And I told you that I have been rebuilding my ships kind of as I go. I rebuild in orbit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the last mission that I had been on to Vol, I left the science processing lab and a HAB module and some other things. I left them all connected and I put them in orbit around Tylo. And then I sent the remaining fuel tank and engine and ship and crew back. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to Tylo this time, I hooked up with that. And so it's kind of, think of it as it's like an orbiting space station right now around Tylo.
Yeah.
Simply because I don't have the fuel to land on Tylo. So what I'm doing now is I built a bigger lander that has more fuel capacity and more engine thrust. And I'm going to send that one there and see if I can get it down on Tylo. But that's where I am right now. I did Vol, and I'm working on Tylo. And once I'm done with Tylo, I think I've got Bop, and then I'm done.
So that new lander you're going to build, is it going to interact with the one that's currently in orbit?
Yes. The one that's currently in orbit actually doesn't have enough left of it to be a lander anymore.
Yeah.
But I've connected it to the orbiting science lab. And like I said, it's basically a space station. It's,
Okay.
If you can visualize this, it's the orbit. It's the space. What is it? The space lab module. There's a habitation module, and then on top of that is there's basically it's the landing. What do you call it? The 2-seater landing capsule.
Okay, yeah.
But and that's kind of on top, and then it's got 2 of the giant solar panels, and I've got it at a 0-degree angle to where it's basically straight up and down, and it's in a almost perfect circular orbit around Tylo. And that's where it is right now. It's waiting for the next mission to come get them. And I currently have 3 Kerbals on there.
Yeah, well, at least they have company.
Yeah. Well, I've got the science lab, I've got 2 HAB modules, and then I've got the landing module.
So they all have their own room.
Yeah, so basically they've all got their own rooms, and I've got them all being antisocial.
Yeah.
You know, they're like all in their different rooms listening to music and, writing dark poetry. One of them was listening to Diarrhea Planet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I think it was Neil Don. Neil Don was. He was jamming. Yeah, I looked in through the window, and he was doing like the head banging thing with the 2 fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing, when I was in orbit around Tylo, I'm the lander that I'm using. It's the same configuration as before. It's a center tank, and then it's got 6 tanks symmetrically arranged around it with engines on them. Well, as I use up fuel, to minimize weight, what I'll do is I'll transfer the remaining fuel out of the tanks into other tanks, and then I'll drop, I started with 6 tanks. I transferred fuel out of 2 of them into the remaining 4, and then dropped those 2.
Okay, so you're symmetrically dropping them.
Yeah, I'm symmetrically dropping them.
Yeah, so they balance.
Yeah, and I ended up with, now I've got a center tank with 4 tanks around it. Okay. But what I thought was interesting, I kind of by accident came up with a perfect example of orbital mechanics. When I ejected the 2 tanks, and I didn't do this on purpose, this was purely by accident, but when I ejected the 2 tanks, one of them ejected down towards the surface, and the other one ejected up away from the surface. Okay. So think of it like this. There's a tank, there's my spacecraft, and then there's another tank. Okay. So you've got, at the lowest, you've got a tank, then you've got my spacecraft in the middle, and then at the highest, you've got another tank.
You get a spacecraft sandwich.
Basically, yeah. Or if you're ready for your dessert, a spacecraft Oreo.
Oh, there you go.
But okay. So anyway, so here I am cruising along. Well, it wasn't that long before the tank below me was ahead of me because it was lower. And the tank that was above me was behind me. So if Kerbal was like a university course, and I was a professor, and I was trying to explain orbital mechanics to them about how you lower your altitude to speed up relative to your target, that's what I would do to show it.
Yeah.
I would go, okay, here's the ship. I'm going to eject 2 tanks, 1 low, 1 high, and watch what they do relative to me. The high one falls behind, and the low one outpaces me. So I had a demonstration of orbital mechanics.
Yeah.
By pure accident. So if there's ever a Kerbal University, I get to be a tenured professor.
Oh, there you go.
All the interns I can
handle. That way they
handle.
can't fire you.
Yeah, that's right. I need job security.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my progress for the week. I've been still working my way through Joule. Again, Vol has been my favorite.
Yeah.
It really does bring Europa to mind. It really does.
No, it's cool. I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah. And I like that, it's it's kind of a light blue, very icy.
Yeah.
So anyway,
is it,
I wonder if there's sea monsters under the surface.
Yeah. If you walk around on it, do you slip around?
No. No,
Okay.
I did not.
Yeah.
You know what though? I did find some footage from a previous mission, so I
Oh,
think I
there
might
you
make a movie out of it.
It'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think people will like it.
Yeah, I bet they will.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. We're done with our progress report.
Yep.
We are happy to welcome back Wanderfound and another episode of Spaceplane Flight School.
G'day, Kerbanauts. Today, I'm back to talk a bit about building spaceplanes. As with most spaceplaney things, it varies a lot depending on which aerodynamics model you're using. But there are a few things that apply across the board, so I'll talk about those first. First up is the use of centre of lift and centre of mass markers. These are those big glowy balls that you can turn on in the spaceplane hangar, and understanding how they work is essential to getting your spaceplane to fly. Think of a dart or an arrow. What do they have up front? They've got a heavy sharp thing. And what do they have up the back? Feathers. And that's the key. Heavy bit up front, flappy bit up back. Your centre of mass needs to be in front of your centre of lift. The reason for this is because lift correlates very strongly with drag, and any object moving through the air has the tendency to rotate so that the drag is pulled behind the mass. If you put your centre of lift in front of your centre of mass, your plane is going to try to fly backwards. However, you don't want your lift too far back either. Everything in aircraft design is a balancing game, and one of the things you have to balance is stability versus manoeuvrability. Having drag at the back of your plane aids stability, but in doing so it harms manoeuvrability. Some stability is important, but too much will just turn your plane into a lawn dart. Exactly where to place your centre of lift is a bit of a complicated question, especially if you're using far or near, but for stock aero you usually want the lift marker to be overlapping, but not in front of the mass marker. Another problem that bedevils novice designers is difficulty in taking off. They usually try to deal with this by stacking on more wings, more engines, but most of the time it's just a matter of having their landing gear in the wrong place. When you're trying to lift the nose of a plane during takeoff, you need to think of the aircraft as a lever. The lever is trying to lift the nose, and the handle of the lever is your elevators, the control surfaces at the rear of the plane. The fulcrum of this lever is the rearmost set of landing gear. The longer the handle of the lever, the easier it is to use. So, you want as much distance between your elevators and your rearmost set of landing gear as possible, and as little distance between that gear and the centre of mass as possible. So, if you can, put your rearmost gear just behind your centre of mass. But again, there's a balancing act involved. If your landing gear is too far forwards, you may start to have problems with dragging your tail on the runway during takeoff. You can deal with this problem by building taller landing gear or putting in tail strike guards, but those sorts of things are getting into a bit more detail than I can go into during a short podcast segment. So what I've done is I made an illustrated tutorial that follows through the construction of a spaceplane, all the way from the initial concept to building it, taking off, taking it to orbit, bringing it back through re-entry and landing back on the landing strip. I'm sure Biff and Nos will put a link to this up on the show's webpage, but if you just Google Kerbal together with From Hangar to Landing, then you should be able to find it that way as well. It's aimed at people using FAR, but the basic principles illustrated should have application in any of the aerodynamics models. Anyway, that's all for this week. Remember that any landing you walk away from could probably have been faster. See you around. Bye.
That's a really good quote. I like
Yeah,
that.
that was.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of is that scene in Interstellar where they're racing down to that first planet, and Matthew McConaughey says, you know, you want us to get down fast, don't you? And Anne Hathaway says, well, actually, we want to get there in one piece. So yeah. If you can walk away from it, you could have come down faster. So
All right. Hey, thanks a bunch, Wonderfound.
Yeah.
Like, those, I don't know, they're really educational. I really like them.
those
Like,
are good, especially since you and I don't do space planes.
Yeah, it gives a lot more stuff to
Yeah.
be grounded in whenever I start working on this.
It's nice that what sounds like very complex ideas, I mean, he takes them and it's like, oh,
Yeah, there
that
you
makes
go.
perfect sense. Anyway. Well, you want to move on to mission briefing?
Yeah, I got some letters.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay, this one comes from Ben D. Bendy.
Like Bendy and Twisty?
Hi, Biff and Nos. One of the things I love about KSP is how much of an impact the different mods can have on the game. If you're interested in changing the character of the game, alleviating some of the tedium with MechJet can be very helpful, only after unlocking the right node in the tech trees, of course. Once you have some headroom for more challenge-adding mods like Near, Remote Tech, Deadly Reentry, and TAC Life Support can add new and different challenges. Other mods like ScanSat, KAS, Fine Print, and Orbital Science can further improve the diversity of your experience. While I have to admit I have the most unstable game, crashing a few times each playing session, I am amazed that these diverse mods work together at all, and the reward is fantastic. On your last podcast, 29, not the clip show.
Not the clip show.
One of your contributors, addressing Amy K's question on lander design, talked about the difficulty of having a wide or low center of mass design while using an aerodynamics mod like FAR and fitting the lander into a fairing to make launch possible. I solved the problem with another mod, Infernal Robotics, which lets my landers unfold their ungainly, widely splayed legs only after they are in orbit. This is a great example of one mod helping address the challenge introduced by another. Are either of you ever attempted to try the game with more mods? Thanks for the great podcast. May your mod textures always compress well to avoid the 32-bit memory access limitations. Ben D. I get tempted to do a couple of them. I mean, my biggest temptation right now is MechJeb because I just don't want to rendezvous anymore.
Right.
You know, and it's just click it. I don't care if it's efficient or more less efficient. Just do it for me. So yeah, I mean that's my biggest temptation.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought of what was the engineer one that you have that shows
engineering redux.
Yeah. So like you could have that. So you can have that to see how high the apoapsis is while you're still piloting and stuff.
Which you can do with MechJeb.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, MechJeb has a lot of data screens that you can bring up. It's you remember we had the Modders Minute a couple episodes back. DK was talking about how MechJeb has, you can kind of split it into it's partially automation, but it's also partially data screens.
Uh-huh.
And that's the whole reason I have MechJeb installed is those data screens are so helpful.
Yeah.
And they're so convenient. So yeah, the two mods that I use, KW Rocketry and MechJeb. If I start putting too many mods, I start seeing performance issues.
Okay.
So that's why I tend to try and limit it.
But to his question, is there one you're tempted to put on that you just haven't put on?
You remember it took me forever to get Roster Prop Monitor to work, and I finally did. And that's when I was trying to do everything from cabin view. That is a very good mod. I have not, with the when they went to the latest update, and I restarted, that was a mod that I did not reinstall because by that point I had realized that trying to do everything from cabin view was just too limiting.
Yeah.
So I stuck with the information screens that I can get on MechJeb.
Yeah.
So
my big temptations would be MechJeb, the ones that add all the extra contracts.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it right now.
Yeah, it's Fine Print.
Fine Print. Yeah. And then
which will be at least a version of it will be
it'll be added in. So I just have to wait. And then the skin pack that somebody sent us like 10 episodes ago or so, where everything was made with like duct tape and like barbecues and stuff. It was like some redneck mod or something.
Yeah, wasn't it called like Redneck Rocket or something? Yeah, something like that. So the one that I am tempted to use is Amy K talks about this Deadly Reentry and also FAR, which ramps up or makes the aerodynamics much more realistic. The reason that I'm a little scared about putting those on there is I think if I needed any proof of how bad of a player I am, it would come from those two mods.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sitting here going, yeah, I'm landing on this and I'm landing on that and I'm doing all this stuff. And then I install those mods and it's like, yeah, and I blew up on the launch pad. and what's your progress this week? I blew up on the launch pad.
Yeah.
So what's your progress next week? I blew up on the launch pad. I burned up on reentry.
Yeah, the whole thing's like stained black from all the ashes.
Yeah. That's the latest update now that where the launch pad will collapse if you put too much weight on it.
Yeah.
It's before you revert, you've got like this smoking crater where your launch pad used to be. So anyway, I hopefully that answers the question. Let's move on. Andrew Mason writes in, and Andrew he has the blog where he's talking about his progress in the game. He writes in and he says, "Hi Biff and Nos, thanks for mentioning my blog. I find your progress reports and tweets help to provide me with some goals and inspiration. I'm guessing the goal and inspiration is don't do anything they're doing.
Yeah.
Or do better than they're doing. After my impromptu restart last week, I've been trying to get by without revert. At first, this proved quite difficult as I chose some contracts I thought would be easy, famous last words, and resorted to revert and to prevent my space program from going bankrupt. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah. Started to become more accustomed to not using it, and so when I tried to rescue the Kerbal from orbit, it took me a few attempts. First effort involved modifying an existing rocket design, which was good in theory, but forgot to take into account the weight increase in going from MK1 to MK2 command module. This attempt didn't make it out of the atmosphere, but Jeb landed safely. You don't usually hear that. Usually if the beginning of the sentence is something didn't happen successfully, the sentence doesn't generally end with, but Jeb landed safely.
Yeah.
So, upgrade to the boosters got me into space and into orbit. Set up a rendezvous, but didn't match speed very well, so I got close to Tim and was able to activate him, and then watch as the command pod whizzed by. So Jeb landed the command module, and we tried again. This time, Jeb paid much more attention to the speed to target, parked close, and Tim climbed aboard. Unfortunately, there was not enough fuel or RCS to take the command module out of orbit, but at least Tim now had some company. Tim the magician. This gave me enough science to get some better engines, and so off went Bob to rescue them both. Who rescues the rescuers? Now we know.
Yeah.
Bob. All this would have been much different if I had used revert, and I feel it's improving my experience in the game. Keep up the good work. Homer to your mobile. Andrew Mason. Yeah, we've talked about that before, about how reverting sometimes, if you don't do that, you can pull off just some miraculous saves sometimes.
Hey, what's this thing?
What thing?
What's this thing?
Oh, at the very bottom?
Yeah.
Andrew sent you a picture. He knows that you're a board game aficionado. That's a picture of his.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's, do you want to describe it?
It's massive.
Oh.
That
helps.
Yeah, he's got a couple of bookshelves. I'm gonna ballpark, and I'm gonna say he's around 150 games.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
So it's a picture of his bookshelves, board games on them?
All of his board games.
That's
not counting
good
expansions.
Lord. Good Lord.
Yeah, see, my board game cabinet, like I currently live in like a small apartment.
Right.
So what's funny is I'll be telling somebody, yeah, I got to sell some of my games. And they're like, oh, yeah, you have too many? It's like, well, no, my cabinet only holds around 100 games, so I need to make sure I can't go over that. They're like, you have 100 games. I'm like, yeah. I've probably owned around 200 or so, but anytime I run out of room, I'm like, okay, it's time to go through and sell.
That's when you discover how much you really like the games, because you go through and you go, I love this game, but I'll never play it again.
You know what my favorite game out of all of them is?
What?
Right there, down at the bottom right.
What is it?
The horse head on a stick.
Oh. Boy, visual humor works really well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, look at this thing. Look at this picture.
Well, I forgot to point that out to you. That's Andrew. Andrew sent you a picture.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So.
Yeah, it's a good looking collection. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Well, do you want to move? You've got the next letter.
Oh, yeah. This one comes from Sideshow.
Sideshow Bob?
Sideshow, no, just Sideshow.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is my first time writing in, and I'd like to say thank you for the great podcast. Well, you're welcome. I am a big fan of podcasts and an even bigger fan of KSP, and I honestly didn't expect there to be a Kerbal podcast out there, but I was definitely proved wrong. Well, that's kind of what we said whenever we started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how this one started.
Yeah, we're like, oh, there's not one. Well, I guess we'll do one.
We'll do one.
I am from Houston, and he doesn't have any problems, and have always had a fascination with space. Last night, the International Space Station passed over Houston, and I just had time to catch it flying overhead. It made me think of all the work that went into putting all that stuff up there, and how many times I have had to hit Alt F9 because I knocked all my solar panels off trying to dock with the station. It really puts it into perspective how monumental the achievements of our real space programs here are on Earth. I also would like to mention the roster prop monitor mod. On a previous episode, you talked about IVA getting frustrating. The roster prop monitor mod adds more detailed and interactive displays in IVA mode. Thanks again, and may you always have the wind under your wings.
That is so. You know what? That's Sideshow Bette Midler.
Oh,
She's got the wind beneath her wings. That's what he was talking about there about how this game makes you appreciate how much work goes into it. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when you play this game, you suddenly have an understanding of the vast difficulties that our space program overcomes to do anything.
Yeah,
it's like the Rosetta Comet. Now that I have at least a working understanding of what was required to hit that target 10 years ago, 10 years ago, they figured out where that comet was going to be and how to get there. And, you look at that and you think that is so difficult.
Oh, yeah.
And you were talking about how you're starting to visualize the little black and yellow balls, for center of mass.
I was working
things.
on a ladder at a construction site, and I was holding something hanging off the ladder, and I was like, yeah, my center of gravity is probably around here, and it should not be there if I'm lifting this above my head.
It's too bad you can't move things with just mouse clicks, right?
Yeah. That'd be nice.
Well, let's move on. Our next letter comes from John Pluto Moved On. He says, hello, I'm sending this letter into the future.
Oh.
As I'm still catching up on the podcasts, currently on episode 19 of 30 as of this message. But I've had a question bouncing around since an early episode and couldn't wait until I caught up to ask it. So he won't hear this letter for at least a couple of weeks. I don't know how many he's burning through, but in a week. But so I do apologize if it's already been covered. But have either of you tried playing with a joystick or flight stick or other non-mouse and keyboard controller? In an earlier podcast, you touched on a video of someone constructing a whole command or a whole control panel, but I was curious what your personal experiences were and if you would or would not recommend it. Thanks and keep up the good work. Again, John Pluto Moved On. I've never done that.
Yeah, me neither.
Is it even possible? Is there? Have
you
looked under the?
People have done it.
Okay.
Like I've seen videos of people that have done it. I haven't done it myself because I don't own a flight stick, and I don't want to, purchase one just for the sake of seeing if I'll even like it.
Right.
So, like, if I knew somebody that had one, I'd borrow it just to see what it was like. But it would probably give you more of an intuitive feel than a mouse would,
right?
As to making adjustments. But to me, it's just it's not worth it financially for me to be like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
I don't know if it would be beneficial to me, because when I started playing PC games way back when, it was first-person shooters, and I have gotten so used to the WASD configuration, and especially with Kerbal now, I've gotten so used to all the different buttons and where they are, and I mean, I'm so used to putting,
you're too ingrained.
And I don't know if I would I don't know if I would handle a joystick as well.
Yeah, you'd have to uproot yourself from what you knew and move over to all these buttons and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's a good question, though.
Yeah.
I will throw this out to the listeners. Have any of you ever tried a joystick or a flight stick? Have you used a non-standard control scheme for Kerbal? And if so, we would certainly like to hear your experiences. What is our next letter?
This one comes from Anthony B. Hi, lads. Just checking back in with some not-so-important news. I was up early last Saturday morning as I am plagued by a general inability to sleep after the sun has come up above the horizon. I boot Kerbal and go make a coffee.
I have 2 words for you. Blackout curtains.
Oh, yeah. No, that's helped a lot.
Yeah.
This time before a long burn for Jewel, my eldest niece, at age 9, wandered into the room and told me she'd seen that space game before. She was visiting from interstate. Apparently, the visitor center in Tidbinbilla tracking station has Kerbal on display for people to use.
Really?
Yeah. She said that
that's cool.
She said that it looked fun, but that she couldn't get the rockets to fly, so I showed her how to make a basic rocket, and after 3 attempts and some supervision, she managed to get into orbit with the Kerbal X stock craft. It wasn't circular, but it was outside the atmosphere. Hey, that's good enough.
Very good.
That's what I can fight for. She managed to get to the Mun, too, but ran out of fuel and performed a high-speed litho break. We also went to the local science center with my daughter at age 5 and made balloon-powered rockets. Attempt 1 went off without a hitch, but when attempt number 2 came loose from the sticky tape and went on a death spiral, the first thing out of my mouth was, needs more struts. One of the supervisors of this task was chuckling.
I thought he was going to say need to revert or need to F9.
Kerbal ears. They're everywhere. Anyway, I was super excited about Orion last week, too, and I'm looking forward to Rosetta, Dawn, and, of course, KSP 0.90. All this space science stuff is making me giddy. Will you please pass the snacks? Anthony B.
That's very good.
Yeah, it was really cool.
We have talked about this before, but that's one of the things that is so nice about this game is it opens a door for learning.
Oh yeah. We've had stories about people using it in classrooms or just showing orbital mechanics stuff to kids and stuff.
Well, and also, how many letters have we gotten from people that have said either this game inspired me to pursue a career in
go to school for this,
or people that were already in that direction latched onto this, and it's like now they're understanding basic concepts even more. So it's Kerbal is a very it's not a game for the people that aren't curious and that are impatient. I told you earlier that I've been trying to bring a landing in on Tylo. Well, when I was trying to bring my apoapsis down, and I had a fairly low periapsis, there was a very small window in the periapsis where I could burn my engines and bring the apoapsis down without lowering my periapsis. And, I would do that, and then I would high speed around and then get back to my periapsis and do it again. And it was taking a long time to do it. And the whole time I was thinking to myself, this requires a tremendous amount of patience.
Yeah.
To just keep, because what I was trying to do is I was trying to bring my apoapsis down without eating up a lot of fuel. And Tylo doesn't give you much in the way of gravity or it has no atmosphere. So you can't aerobrake. So there was kind of like this little sweet spot that I could take advantage of to bring my apoapsis down and not burn up a lot of fuel. But again, it was a long period of time of me just circling back around to that one little sweet spot and burning my engines a little bit.
Yeah.
And then circling back around. Now, your average Twitch gamer is not going to like that. So anyway, kudos, as they say, to Kerbal Space Program. Did you have it's my turn? Okay.
Yeah.
Next letter. This one says, hello from Las Vegas. And this comes to us from Vegas Bright. Biff Nos. I am thoroughly enjoying the podcast. As a former podcaster, I know just how much time and effort goes into producing the program. Thank you for providing the Kerbalcast to the public. It has enriched my enjoyment of the game, and I look forward to it every week. I've been playing KSP for a good year so far, dropping it now and again, but returning to the game, picking it up as time permits. I think mods engender my continued interest in the game, as it adds fresh approaches and challenges. The mod Interstellar has been the most recent catalyst for finding me once again, guiding the Kerbals across the void. Have you heard about the Interstellar mod?
No.
Me either. I'm going to have to look that up. Of course, my first thought is it's related to the movie, but I'm probably very wrong.
If I get a TARS robot, then I'm downloading that now.
You can have a TARS robot. I will take the other one. What was the other one called?
Hathaway.
Oh, well, I definitely will take that. I'll definitely take the Hathaway. Yes, I'll definitely take the Hathaway.
I think it was Flint.
No, not Flint. It was TARS and Rips or
Whatever.
Poos or whatever. Yeah. Who knows? Let's see. The mod Interstellar, now with fusion reactors strapped to the ship. He's guiding his Kerbals across the void. Any chance of covering this highly technical and rather frustrating fun mod? I think I know just the person for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. DK, the bat signal just clicked on.
Yeah.
Keep up the top-notch podcast. I still need to binge listen to your older programs. Oh, please don't. Just, let's tell you what, listen to episode 6 and the best of, and you're covered.
Well, no, he's from Vegas, not Canada.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Let's see. What would he be? Okay. Listen to episode 0 twice.
Yeah.
No, episode 1 twice.
Yeah.
Let's see. After going through 3 episodes during a road trip, I hope he was alone in the car.
Yeah.
I found myself yearning to get back to the game. I usually carry a moleskin full of graph paper and found myself doodling ship design ideas and flight plans. Yeah, I never do that. Now, actually, when you're drawing ship designs, what the hardest thing to do is to get everything symmetrical.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like you draw like an engine and whatever on one side, and then you draw it on the other side, and it's like you got a huge engine on one side and a real small one, and you're going, that's supposed to be the same size.
Yeah. Well,
so, fun personal factoid on an interesting personal connection to the game. This is something I didn't know. This is going to be, you'll find this very interesting. My fraternal grandfather moved his family to Las Vegas during the 50s to work at the Nevada test site. While there, he worked on military applications of nuclear energy, specifically the Nerva rocket motor in this instance. Nerva is Nerva. Do you know that the atomic rocket motor in the game looks exactly like what he's talking about?
Oh, really?
I don't know if that's intentional. I suspect it is. But there is a part in the game, the atomic rocket motor, that has a real-world counterpart. And it's this Nerva rocket motor.
Huh.
Among the large framed pictures of nuclear tests and other memorabilia my grandparents kept as proud achievements of the Atomic Energy Commission was a large framed photo of a Nerva test firing. Later seeing it in KSP was an extra bonus to this epic game. Just simply go online. The easiest way to find out more information, go to Google and just search for Nerva. Nerva. And when you see a picture of this thing, you will be astonished because here, as a matter of fact, I printed it out. Take a look at that. Doesn't that look like exactly the rocket motor from the game?
Oh, yeah, that looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, I highly encourage everybody, go online and search for Nerva, and you'll see what we're talking about.
The Nervasome people.
The Nerva. Thank you.
It was there. I had to do it.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Safe flights and happy landings, and again, Vegas Bright. Well, thank you, sir. You've got our, next to the last letter?
I think this is the... Oh, yeah, you got one more. So,
I got one more.
We have Armin. Hi, Biff. Hi,
Armin
Nos.
Hammer?
Yeah. I am a listener from Germany who recently got interested in KSP and hence found your show when looking for a podcast to go with it. I have only listened to a few of your podcasts, but I have really enjoyed what I've heard so far.
Have you noticed that that's kind of how it seems to go?
Yeah.
Is people get the game and then immediately start looking for a podcast?
Yeah, and that's something I haven't done with, like, a lot of the smaller games I've played. Like, I couldn't really see a podcast dedicated just to that game, so you'll find an episode or something. But for some games, you'll find an entire podcast dedicated to it.
Well, I do that. I do that with TV shows a lot. Like, when I binge watched Breaking Bad, boom, I was looking for podcasts. Game of Thrones, got to get podcasts. So
yeah, I played this game called. I've been looking for a podcast for it, but there aren't any. I've been looking for Minecraft podcasts. There just aren't any out there.
Yeah. Sarcasm detected.
So thanks for that. I only have one comment. Compressions are really high on your MP3s, being at 64 kilobit.
Yeah, kilobits per second.
And there are a lot of audio glitches which are kind of annoying. So I suggest using a higher bit rate if you don't mind. Otherwise, your audio quality is really great. It's just a pity to spoil such a great experience.
I would ask our listeners, when I upload the podcast, I always download a copy for myself and listen to it to make sure that there aren't anything like that. I have never encountered that.
Yeah.
But for all I know, I may be the only one. My question to the listeners, are you having problems with artifacts or glitches in the sound quality? I am encoding the podcast at 64 bits, and I'm doing it to keep the sound quality, not the sound quality, the file size low.
Yeah.
That's also the reason we're in mono.
Yeah, so you can put it on your phone or you can put it on anything like that, and it's not going to eat up all your memory.
If that is an issue, please let me know. I can always bump this up to a higher bit rate. If you'd rather, I could take it up to 96 or 128. Or if you're really a glutton for punishment, I'd go all the way to 360. Super quadraphonic surround sound.
Yeah, just get out my Kerbalcast hard drive.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, please let me know if anyone's having a problem with this. And to this particular listener, I'm sorry you're having problems.
Okay, for the rest of the letter. As a kid, I was very interested in space and all that, but it kind of died down. Although I eventually became a physicist, I never really got into orbital mechanics and related topics until lately. My interest was mostly reignited when I read The Right Stuff. And now I dove into Mike Mullane's Riding Rockets, which covers the early shuttle program. You probably know it, right? I'm looking forward to some more
do now.
Reading related to the Gemini and Apollo program, which I certainly expect to find there is more talk about enemas, as every space program-related book seems to feature it. So I'd like to ask, why do you think NASA is so fond of enemas? Keep up the good work, Armin. Well, I don't know. If you don't knock something until you've tried it.
Yeah, haven't you ever done recreational enemas?
Yeah.
No, I think it's a weight issue. I think what they do is they flush out the astronauts, kind of try and get at least a good 15 pounds off of each one of them before they send them up.
Yeah.
So I think that's why NASA likes enemas so much.
So if your rocket's ever having weight problems, just give all your Kerbals enemas.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, I was unaware that they were fond of enemas, but
yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't the right stuff. So.
Yeah. Do you know the scene in the movie where they give them the barium enemas and then they have to go 3 flights up to get to the bathroom?
Uh-huh.
When that movie first came out, this was before I had seen it the first time, but I heard somebody talking about it, and they referred to that scene as that was one of the tests that the astronauts were put through, was that they filled them up, they filled their rectums up with barium, and then made them go up 3 flights of stairs to go to the bathroom. And that was presented as one of the tests. I didn't discover until later that no, they were doing the barium enemas, but the test wasn't them going to the bathroom. It was whatever they were doing prior to that.
Yeah, yeah.
But for the longest time when I watched the movie, it was with the impression that I was watching a test.
Uh-huh.
And now I find out, oh no, that was like the side effect.
Yeah,
they gave them enemas, and then typical government thinking, it's like, we'll give them the enema here, and the closest bathroom is 3 flights up.
Yeah.
So anyway. Okay, well, on to our next letter. And this comes to us from Amy K. And she says, "Hi, guys. I thought I'd write in with another fail story that happened to me recently. After the wonderful advice people gave me following the lander woes I previously had, I thought I would build a new lander based off this advice and take it to Minmus in a test run before going to the Mun. Ready with my bottom-heavy lander that I was confident wouldn't tip over for anything short of a hurricane, I was ready to set off on my mission. Everything went nice and smoothly all the way to Minmus, and the smile on Jeb's face made clear how ecstatic he was just to be alive this long into one of my missions. We came into land, and thanks to the Kerbal community, we successfully landed upright on the surface of Minmus. Jeb got out, planted a flag, which I lovingly engraved with the plaque, "For Jeb," acknowledging the guilt from my previous fail, and we shared a moment of happiness. My happiness in landing upright and his happiness in not having exploded. Now, at this point, I should point out 2 things. Number 1, I am in career mode and want all the science I can get. And number 2, I am prone to bouts of impatience, which I'm fairly certain is an undesirable attribute when in charge of an astronaut. After I had Jeb take a surface sample, an EVA report, and store it, I remembered that Minmus has biomes, and there was a hill not too far from where I landed. Determined to get all the science I could, I set Jeb off walking towards the hill. But it soon came to my attention that the hill was much further than I thought. Not put off by this, and having grown impatient at Jeb's slow walking pace, I decided I would abuse Minmus's low gravity to fire Jeb's RCS and launch him towards the hill. This did speed him up considerably, and it wasn't too long before he was on the hill, collecting me even more science. Happy with my haul, I turned Jeb around and fired him back at considerable speed towards the lander. Or so I thought. As time went on, it occurred to me that I'd been going much longer than on the way to the hill, so I checked the map, and to my horror, I saw that I had gone off diagonally in the wrong direction. Conscious of Jeb's depleting propellant, I noted a marker on the lander and brought him to a halt before firing him towards it. With his propellant running lower still, I thought I would get him up to a good speed, so in the worst case, I could just turn it off and still make progress. The lander approached, and it was time to slow down, but he wouldn't. He had been firing for too long and was traveling too fast. With a horrible fear, I went into map view and swallowed hard as I saw he was on a trajectory that would take him almost completely around Minmus. He was almost in orbit. Desperately trying to wrestle the situation under control, I fired frantically against his trajectory to slow him down. So desperate to save him now that I would happily have him walk all day back to the lander. It was working, and he was slowing down. But then it stopped without even a splutter. His fuel was gone. With nothing I could do to save him, we looked hard into each other's eyes and mutually acknowledged my fail one final time before Minmus gained a small new biome, a slightly different shade of green. Jeb's flag now stands by a lonely lander full of science on the surface of Minmus, and Jeb himself rests somewhere on the opposite side of the moon. Homer to your mobile, Amy K. Oh, that is so sad. Don't worry, Amy. He'll be back.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that our last letter came from Amy K because Amy K, also known as Amy Kettlewell, had an idea for a ongoing serial starring Kerbals. And so we are proud to bring you a brand new feature on the program called A Kerbal Life.
My name is Jebediah Kerman. I've looked up into the sky my whole life, watching the Mun and Minmus, and imagining what wonders they may hold. And then I read this morning's newspaper and saw an ad asking for brave Kerbals to come down to KSP and go see the stars.
Once again, our main story is the appointment of a new administrator at the Kerbal Space Program. We will shortly see the first Kerbals in space. Stay tuned next for another episode of As the Kerbin Tournament.
Okay, everyone. Jebediah Kerman is the lucky Kerbal who will be launched today. Jebediah, if you want to come with us.
Congratulations, Jebediah. I hope you're excited.
I sure am. I can't believe I get to be the first Kerbal in space.
Carmen, will you go and finalize the launch details with the administrator?
No problem.
Oh, and I'm sure you'll be pleased to know that the administrator is grateful for the junk metal you donated last month.
Well, it was only going to waste. I actually fell off my brother's old rollie that doesn't run anymore. So, what are they doing in there?
Oh, the scientists are preparing tests on some goo. You'll actually be taking some of that up with you today.
Never heard of goo.
It's top secret goo.
It's so weird, though.
Some people like to come up here and watch through the glass in case it does some... Hey, whoa! Don't touch the glass! That goo could squirt out, burn through it, right into your face and blind you in a second.
Really?
Maybe. Doesn't mean it couldn't do that. Okay, right, here we are. I'll leave you with the prep team, and I'll speak to you again at liftoff. Good Kerbal and Jeb.
T-minus 90 seconds and counting.
Orbital 1 to mission control. All lights are on. Nothing's flashing, so I think that means I'm ready to go.
Copy that, Jeb. How you feeling?
I've never been so excited. I do have one small question, though. How exactly do I get into orbit?
Oh, don't worry about that, Jeb. We'll guide you all the way through right from here.
Okay. And you know I don't know what any of these buttons actually do, right?
Nah, you don't need to worry about them either.
Okay, if you say so.
T-minus 60 seconds and counting.
Mission control to Orbital 1. The administrator has cleared us for launch. You see that big red button?
The one that says launch?
That's the one. I'll count down from 10, then you press that button.
Understood.
Okay, let's do this, everyone. Orbital 1 launching in T-minus 10, 9... Oh, hell, launch!
MC, I'm pressing the...
Alright! Sweet! 50,000 feet! We did it! Great job, everyone! Orbital 1 has cleared the atmosphere.
Wait! Word from the administrator. We have to revert.
What?
The administrator says we need to revert to vehicle assembly immediately.
Jebediah's cleared the atmosphere, Carmen! What's the problem, anyway?
The administrator's designs, there was a flaw.
What kind of flaw?
There's no parachute on the rocket, and there was supposed to be. The administrator overlooked it in assembly.
So our first Kerbal in space has no way of coming back from space without a horrible incident?
Yes?
But Carmen, didn't you notice there was no parachute?
I did think it was an odd design choice.
Why didn't you say something? Jebediah's up there with enough scientific research to make a difference to the whole of Kerbal kind. Not to mention what would happen to the KSP if the first Kerbal in space was the last Kerbal in space. Carmen, take out another ad. Look for some more Kerbals who are both brave and stupid this time. We need to figure out how to get Jeb home.
A Kerbal Life was written by Amy Kettlewell with music by Lee Rosebeer. Jebediah Kerman and Kerbal Space Program were created by Squan. The game is available for purchase on Steam or KerbalSpaceProgram.com.
I can't wait to find out what happens.
Yeah.
Jeb is stranded in orbit and no parachute.
I've never heard of that problem.
You've never heard of that problem?
No, it's
You've never forgotten a parachute.
That has happened a lot.
You're a lucky man. You have lived well, my friend.
No, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. She is a very good writer.
Oh, yeah.
And we will have, obviously, we'll pick up next week with episode 2 of A Kerbal Life. And that does it for this week's edition of Kerbalcast, episode 31. Hard to believe, the Misty Mountain Hop.
Yeah.
We would like to thank some folks. First of all, we want to thank our listeners, as always.
We want to thank our contributors, Wonder Found with Flight School and Amy K with A Kerbal Life.
Yay!
We also want to thank the subreddit moderators of KSP and Kerbal Academy.
And those without, I'm going to tie myself in a knot here. We want to send out a big thanks to the people who make all this possible, and that is, of course, Squad. Thank you so much. As always, you can get in touch with us at kerbalpodcast@gmail.com.
And let you know, all the music you've heard is by Professor Soap. You can find him at facebook.com/Professor Soap. If you ever want to get a hold of us through Twitter, you can find us at Kerbalcast.
That's right. And also, we're on YouTube, thanks to Ascalon. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, or you can download episodes directly from kerbalpodcast.libsyn.com. And that does it for this week's episode. I'm your LMP, Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin, our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
Until next week, happy Kerbaling.
Because you know I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space. Yeah, it's pretty clear, I ain't commercial crew, but I can launch it like I'm supposed to do. 'Cause I got that boom that all the astros chase. All the space flight to all the right places. I see Orion crew working that ship non-stop. You know we're going far, now put that last on top. If you got boosters, just raise them up. 'Cause every spacecraft needs propulsion from the bottom to the top. Hey, they're working so hard, don't you love these NASA guys? They will take us so far the first time that Orion flies. You know we're traveling to deep destinations for too long. So if that's what you're into, then join in and ride along. Because you know I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space. I'm bringing rockets back. Go ahead and tell the whole world that. Come on board, it's that. 'Cause every spacecraft needs propulsion from the bottom to the top. Hey, they're working so hard, don't you love these NASA guys? They will take us so far the first time that Orion flies. You know we're traveling to deep destinations for too long. So if that's what you're into, then join in and ride along. Because you know I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space travel. Yeah, space travel. I'm all about that space. Because you know I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space travel. I'm all about that space. Because you know I'm all about